The aftermath of my Chuck Wallace spin and subsequent T-bone. It's going to be rebuilt. Today starts the rebuild process. It's going to be a lot of work. We got to get a whole new unibody on here. New door. We picked one up from a junkyard. Going to upgrade the fenders. Some carbon fiber with vents. We'll see how this goes. For now, what I need to do is remove the diff and the axles because they've got to be rebuilt. This spline in here popped out somehow. It's very odd because the suspension is not damaged at all. Nothing got hit back here. The frame definitely got hit, but I don't know why it would have caused that to pop out. So we're gonna investigate. First step, I drained the dip fluid that I had just changed before Chuck Walla, but it is pretty bad. It's definitely got some metal in it. I took the center caps off and tried to remove the axle nut. First, you gotta take these stakes out. You gotta bend them out with a chisel or a good flathead screwdriver. But man, they were really tight. I think they torqued them to like 200 foot-pounds. So I tried a little liquid wrench. Let that sit for a few hours. It helped a little, but not much. You gotta take a big 36 millimeter socket and to get it in there, if with the wheel on, the wheel to kind of help, provide some pressure on the ground. You could take the wheel off, but then you gotta hold the axle steady somehow so it doesn't twist. So anyway, I thought I'd leave the wheel on, but you have to use in order to do that, you're gonna have to use a little extension on your socket. So I tried a breaker bar and just couldn't get it. Ultimately, used my breaker bar with a 4.5 foot arm from my jack, and that did the trick. Ejected up by the diff, secured it with jack stands underneath. Now let's remove the wheels. I can loosen up the E-Torx bolts right here. They're an E14. These are on the axle shafts where they connect to the differential. I'm using a 1/2-inch drive, the 3/8 adapter to get this E14 on there. I only have a 3/8 inch socket. And because there's 6 of these bolts, they go around the shaft. What I had to do is I removed, 2 at a time, and then I had to twist the shaft. And I did that on the other side. Leaving the axle nut off and then twisting the shaft with the breaker bar. Okay, 6th and final bolt came out. Made it pretty easy to slide this. I'm gonna go take that axle nut off again and see if we can't pull this out. Finish removing this axle nut for real this time. All right, remember that's gonna be thrown away. And ideally, this would just pull right out, but it's not likely going to do that. Use an axle puller, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to knock it out, give it a little knock here. And hit my wheel stud in the process. It's okay, we're going to replace those too. As is the wheel bearing. We're going to replace the hub and the wheel bearing on this thing. I cannot figure out how to remove the axle without taking out the exhaust pipe. So, in order to remove the exhaust pipe, once you've got that axle loose, here, at least on the, what side are we on? We're on the passenger side. On the passenger side, it's going to be a 14 millimeter socket to remove the clamp on the X pipe there, and a 14 millimeter socket up there on what would be a hanger. If you've got a muffler, then you probably have two hangers. I'm straight pipe back here, so it's loud, and there's only one hanger I've got using. And then lastly, on the there's a hanger that connects the exhaust pipe up here to the differential, and that took an 18mm socket. What I found though on the driver's side is you can't get an 18mm socket up there. The differential gets in the way, so it looks like I'm going to need to use a 18mm open end wrench to get that rubber hanger off. And then for some reason I've got 12mm bolt on this part of the X pipe, the driver's side of the X pipe, and a 12mm nut up here on that hanger. Why they're 12mm on the driver's side, I don't know. Those were the OEM bolts and nuts. It got me. There we go with the axle loose from the wheel bearing. There we go. Done. As you can see, the boot's torn as well. I don't know if that's from the damage from the accident, or actually could be because I've got this fatter sway bar and the damn thing is rubbing right there. It's rubbing on the boot. So good news is we're also going to upgrade our end links, put some adjustable end links that hopefully should help avoid that, get that sway bar pushed up a little higher. To remove the rear diff, we've got 3 bolts, starting with a 21mm back here, and it's torqued down pretty tight. You can see. And then there's 2 up front, 18. Let me show you how to get to those. So here, where the bushings are, which we'll be replacing with this job, there's 1 18mm, and then 2 on this side, 18mm. Of course, the third one, as I showed already, is in the back, and there's a bushing we'll replace as well. We're gonna go solid, boys. Solid bushings. Okay, to get to these bolts though, I had to remove a couple nuts off of this heat shield and then bend the heat shield down. Before we get them too loose, we're going to want to put our jack underneath to support the diff. Once I started ratcheting off this rear bolt, I discovered there's actually a nut in here holding it in. So you got to get a 21mm socket on the rear. Here, where are we? There we are. 21mm socket on the rear, and then hold the other side with a 21mm open end wrench. And of course, this is after you break it. Once you break it, you'll be able to use 2 hands and do this. Remember how I said I just bent the heat shield down to access the bushings? Well, that would be fine if you're just replacing the bushings, but as we're removing the diff, almost forgot, there's some E12 Torx or E-Torx bits up in here that we got to remove. I think maybe 6 of them. Yeah, I'm guessing there's 6 of them up there, and you can't really do that with the heat shield in the way, so we're just going to remove the damn thing. And to do that, it looks like I had to remove 2 13mm bolts that connect this brace right here underneath the exhaust, the X pipe, and then some 8mm screws holding the body panel, or that little under tray piece in. And then we're able to start sliding this out. I'm gonna have to bend it a little bit on the way, but you know, the idea is we slide it back and get it removed so we can access those E-Torx bolts, loosen those, finish loosening up the 3 bushings, and then rock and roll. Lower the diff. One's a little tough. There's 2 I haven't been able to get out yet. So I got the E-Torx, the E12, an adapter to go to 1/2-inch drive, and then a swivel on a breaker bar. We're gonna see if I can break this loose this way. What I did is I took my eTorx 12, an adapter to get it to 1/2-inch drive, a swivel adapter, and then a couple extensions. And I was able to break that top one loose with this breaker bar here. So that proves that you can get to all these. It just takes a little bit of ingenuity. There we go. Perfect. Okay, slow it down. Okay, it's a new day. I tried to lower that last night. Could not break this seal here. Trying to get this propeller shaft, this drive shaft removed from the diff. I grabbed a pry bar here and it just kind of moved it out more than I was getting with a screwdriver last night. But that's about as far as I can get it on each side. Let's see if we can remove it now. There you go. You just got to get a good pry bar, get up in the this little lip here on each side. And now the propeller shaft is loose. Let's rock and roll, boys. There she is. It wasn't as smooth a landing as I'd hoped. Had on the jack, the floor jack, and was working on removing the last bolt, and then it just kind of fell on me. So I was a receiver. I caught it, thankfully. It's all good. Didn't cause any damage. But man, that is heavy. It is not going to fit in that Amazon box either. While I'm waiting for the unibody to arrive, we can remove the headliner and airbags, and I'm just going to get rid of these door panels and lose some weight here. Remove the front fenders, and then get it into the body shop for them to take care of the door, unibody, cut this one out, weld the new one in, while Bimmer World is rebuilding the diff and rebuilding the axles. And then hopefully the rebuilt diff and axles will arrive in time for me to pick this up from the body shop. I'll be driving the 430 here a little bit while I'm waiting. But you know, weather's getting good, so I think I'll start driving the motorcycle. That's going to do it here from Rob's Garage today. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can follow along with the rebuild process here on the E92 M3. And I'll see you on down the road.